Can everyone hear me now? There we go. My name is Connor McCombs. I'm the Health Communications Officer for the City of Somerville, and I'm going to be facilitating for y'all tonight. Thank you all for joining us. Tonight we're going to get started with our mayor giving us an introduction, and we're going to move through a presentation from our police chief, our constituent services, and our health and human services department, and then we'll be moving into a Q&A portion where you guys can share your feedback, your questions. We'll just have a few asks of you in that so that we have a community agreement of sorts on what's expected of us when we're going through that Q&A portion. We're going to try and move at a clip because we know a lot of people have a lot to say on this. So if you can move to the agenda, please, Victoria. Here's a quick overview of what we're going to be going through. This is the community agreements we're going to ask everyone to kind of adhere to when we go through the Q&A process. I'll go over them once we get to that point in a little bit more depth of exactly what everything means. And I would like to go ahead and introduce Mayor Katjana Ballantyne to give us a quick introduction to what the issue we're here to talk about is. Thank you all so much for being here.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for being here. Many of you are well aware that we have an increase in persons experiencing homelessness in Somerville. And I know a lot of you are here or have contacted us because of related safety concerns around the city, in Seven Hills Park, in Davis Square. And some of you have also asked, what are we doing to support our vulnerable residents? Before I get into any other points, I want to be clear. It's not acceptable situation either for those with nowhere to sleep or for residents who are worried about safely navigating public spaces. We are fully focused on both of these community concerns. That's ensuring that we're doing our best to connect our vulnerable populations to resources, be that food, shelter, permanent housing, rehab, employment, or other supports, all of which gives them other options than having to sleep or spend their days without a place to go. And that's ensuring that our neighborhoods are safe for all use, that parents can go to and from daycare without worrying about public drug use or threatening behavior, that pedestrians can feel safe in our parks and on our public paths, that our local businesses do not experience any related impacts. Our approach is balanced with public health and public safety. We are just as focused on patrolling the parks and squares to addressing concerning activities as we are in conducting outreach so that these residents have other options. Somerville Police Department has conducted more than 600 directed patrols in the areas of Seven Hills and Davis Square Plaza since August. Their presence is helping to reduce neighborhood impacts, build connections, and they are also connecting residents to resources. When needed, they've made arrests, not for homelessness, that's not a crime, but for drug distribution or other violations. I've been walking the area myself as early as 6:30 in the morning and as late as 10:30 at night. And I've seen changes, but certainly there's more to be done. We have set up an interdepartmental response team to address all the needs, be that public safety or areas such as trash pickup, police support, harm reduction, efforts, health outreach, and more. Meanwhile, our city's community health workers and the Somerville Homeless Coalition are working hard to intensify outreach efforts to address immediate concerns and deeper issues for our residents. You'll hear more about that from our Director of Health and Human Services, Karen Carroll, from our Somerville Police Department with Chief Benford and Deputy Donovan, as well as our 311 Director of Constituent Services, Steve Craig. For now, I want to be clear. We have a rising homelessness nationwide, statewide, and in Somerville. Massachusetts is a declared state of emergency because our emergency shelters are full. Since day one, my administration has been working to grow our resources for the unhoused in multiple fronts, be that supporting our local shelter, social service supports, prevention services, food access, adding staff, opening up the city's first overnight warming center during the cold winter months in 22, 23, and again for this winter. The first one was in the library here in the West. Last year it was in Ward 5 in the Armory, and now we're looking to open it up in the former Cummings schools in Ward 3. The goal was to drive the green line that shows the number of unhoused residents we've identified in our annual count. The broader circumstances of our society have overtaken the efforts, and instead we're seeing a rise. Again, we have long been seeing people in Somerville sleeping rough, and my administration has been focused on serving their needs and the community-related needs. What has developed since late summer is new. It's a new environment with new and serious challenges that we have been working with diligence to recalibrate our efforts. We are working with full focus with all our community in mind. That includes both those who are unhoused and everyone who lives, works, does business, and visits here. That work has been and will remain informed by your concerns. And I want you to know that I will be listening closely tonight, whether it's a complaint, a question, or an idea that you want to share. And with that, I'd like to hand it over to Chief Benford and Deputy Donovan.
Good evening, everyone. Can everyone hear me down back? Still can't, still struggling, my apologies. I'll try and talk as loud as I can. I want to first introduce myself. My name is Shumeane Benford, and I am the newly installed chief here in Somerville. I am in my third week. So thank you very much for that. And as I shared with the mayor and with other community members and other stakeholders across the city, as passionate as the conversations have been, I also appreciate your grace as well in the conversation as we continue to talk about how we can move forward. I want to thank, first by thanking you, the community. I want to thank the mayor, my colleagues in government, city councilors that are here, as well as members of Somerville Police Department, both sworn and civilian, that are here tonight and that do the work every day. I really do appreciate it. I want to very briefly just mention that I acknowledge your concerns. I hear you. It's a priority, particularly when you're experiencing it. So it's important for me to be here. I've been here several nights. I've engaged with some of the community here, and we'll continue to have these conversations. I will continue to pledge to be part of the conversation to see how we can work together to come up with pragmatic and approachable solutions so that you feel safe, and most importantly, the neighborhood is safe. We don't want to show up and dictate. We want to have an informed process, most importantly, that's community driven. And on that foundation, we're asking for your partnership. We don't have all of the answers. You'll hear some stats, you'll hear some work that's being done and continues to be done, and we will continue to pledge to do that work in this neighborhood, but we need your partnership. We know what we know, we don't know what we don't know, and we're always open to innovative approaches and innovative ideas. So on that note, I want to thank you all. Again, I graciously ask for your partnership, and I want to recognize Deputy Donovan, who is going to present on behalf of Somerville PD tonight. Deputy Donovan oversees patrol. Many of the assets that you see in the room fall under his command. He's a great asset and a great resource for me, and a great tool and resource for the city of Somerville. So thank you very much. Look forward to the conversation. Deputy?
Good evening, everyone. Can everyone hear me? Good, good. Many of you know me. I'm familiar with a lot of people.
Turn up the volume.
I don't have access to the volume. How's that? Okay. No one's ever told me I'm not loud. So, that's new. We do want to breeze through our presentation. All of us tonight, we want to give as many people an opportunity to speak. So that's why I'm going to try to go fast through this. I'm going to try to clear up some stuff. I'm going to try to present some data from the police department as to what we are doing to address your concerns and your needs in the community. First off, we did have a number of incidents recently that relates to our in-house population, both in Seven Hills Park and in Statue Park. And these incidents, we want to clear up, give you as much information as we're available to give, because we want to stay away from, misnomers or misinformation that kind of circulates amongst the community as to what happened, what didn't happen. So on 9/26, we did have an assault and battery with a dangerous weapon involving four individuals, actually. Two of the individuals were assaulting each other. They were known to each other, and two of the individuals were present as part of the group. Like I said, both were known to each other. One was arrested at the scene. Another, a warrant was taken out and was arrested shortly thereafter. On 9/29, we did have a death in Statue Park. For those of you who don't know, unfortunately, that person passed away on a park bench in Statue Park. We are waiting toxicology, but our investigation has shown that it is not suspicious. That's pretty much all we can speak to is now on that. As of 9:30, we had another assault and battery with a dangerous weapon that happened outside of Mr. Crate. Again, both parties were known to each other, and one party was arrested in that incident right there. As the mayor mentioned, our proactive approach to what we've been doing over the last 7 weeks. Around August 22nd, in partnership with the mayor and her direction, we instituted a 24-hour directed patrol of both Statue Park, Seven Hills Park, and the bike path from Holland Street all the way to Cambridge. What is a directed patrol? A directed patrol is, depending on the officer's availability and call volume, it may be a drive-by, he or she may park in the area, he or she may get out of their car. It depends on the call volume for the night. Since August 22nd, again, 7 weeks, we've done 674 directed patrols. In that time, we've also done park walk and talks, 156 park walk and talks. We've had both Car 6, which is the car that services Davis Square, Car 5, services Ball Square and Trump Field, and Car 7 that services Teal Square up into Route 16. All three cars have been doing park walk and talks in Davis Square, Statue Park, Seven Hills Park, and the path. What is a park walk and talk? Just like it says. The officers have to get out of their vehicles, they walk around, they interact with the public, both the unhoused, the housed, business owners, commuters, whoever's out there. That may last from anywhere from 15 minutes to 45 minutes, so probably on average a half hour. Again, in that time, we've done 156 park walk and talks. Together, that is a 286% increase from last year during that seven-week period. As far as our call volume for Seven Hills Park, Statue Park, in the immediate area, these are our top 5 calls for service. The first being a check condition, which accounts for over a quarter of our calls. A check condition could be anything. It could be concern about a citizen, concern about someone on a park bench, concern about someone screaming or yelling, maybe even a fight. It's classified as a check condition. We also have unwanted persons as one of our top call volume. Unwanted person could be something as simple as someone in 7-Eleven. I almost called it store 24. That's how old I am. In 7-Eleven that may be bothering the business owner or at the foundry or anything like that. Sick person calls speak for themselves. Assist. Again, it's kind of a vague call category we use. That could be anything as well. It could be assisting a homeless person who is struggling with a health issue. It could be assisting someone that is having a fight or having disagreement, anything within that. And a dispute is just that. A dispute is usually an argument, a fight. It doesn't have to be physical. It can be a verbal disagreement. Again, on the right-hand side, you'll see that we've made a total of 13 arrests. That 13th arrest was made this morning on a warrant. That's in a 7-week period, we made 13 arrests. I can say that as of today, I'm waiting for one more. I know our detectives are in the midst of another narcotics investigation, and we expect another arrest to be made very, very soon, which should give us 14 arrests in a 7-week period. Again, that's a 650% increase in arrests in this area during that time period last year. A number of questions we've gotten at these community meetings is how do I contact the police, and when do I contact them? Do I contact 911? Do I use the non-emergency business line, the 1212 line that's down the bottom? I always like to say, if your first instinct is to call 911, you should. That's why we're here. If it's an emergency, obviously, you call us. If it's a non-emergency, you're walking down the bike path and you see someone that You think maybe doing drugs, you continue to walk, and 10 minutes later you think, I should call the police. That's probably the 1212 line. It's no longer an emergency, but we do respond. It just doesn't take up the 911 line, from other responses. But like I always say, if you feel as though 911 is what you want to call, you should. If you think of it, you should call 911. Violence, threats of violence or actual violence against you or another, 911 is the option. Person in distress, drug use, drug distribution, of course. Noise, depending on the level of the noise and the intrusion, 911 may be the line to call. But we do encourage you to call the business line. And a person in need of resources will be the non-emergency line. As for the next steps of the police department, one of our next steps is to continue our presence in Davis Square. We'll continue our park walk and talks, continue our narcotics investigations, continue our directed patrols for the foreseeable future. We also are partnering with our community partners, Health and Human Services, the Homeless Coalition, which is a great partner in Davis Square. It's probably one of our best resources. I'll be here to take questions after, and as always, if you see me in the community meetings, I won't leave until everyone's questions are answered.
Good evening. My name is Steve Craig. I'm the Director of Constituent Services for the City of Somerville, and part of my role is oversight of the city's 311 program. And I'm here this evening to speak to you all briefly as far as how 311 can help with a number of concerned issues that have come up recently. Before I get started, there's a few folks here tonight that I want to make sure I recognize briefly. I believe in the back we have Ward 6 Councilor Lance Davis. We have the Ward 7 Councilor Judy Pineda-Neufeld. And councilors at large, I believe we have Jake Wilson, Kristen Strezzo, and Wilma Bach. Oh, I am very sorry. Councilor Willie Burnley is also here. I did not see you. My apologies. So real briefly, for anyone that doesn't know, 311 is the city's non-emergency customer service and support center. We work to make sure that access to city programs and services are easy and effective for everyone. And that's why 311 is available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. You can reach a live person to assist you. Between our multilingual staff and our interpretation vendor, we can handle a call in virtually any language. And I just want to briefly mention this. If you are outside the city of Somerville, or a few other reasons that I'm happy to talk about if this is you've ever experienced this. There's a 10-digit number that you can call because oftentimes the 3-digit number only works when you're within the boundaries of Somerville. And I just want to bring that up because sometimes people wonder why they're going to Boston or Everett or whatever the case may be. If you prefer self-service, if you don't want to talk to us, we have a mobile app and we have an online portal at somervillema.gov/311. You can also reach us via Facebook, Twitter, live chat, or in person at City Hall during business hours. And we make these options available because we want to be able to connect with people on their schedule and by whatever means is most convenient for you with whatever level of support that you need. And it's because of these great partnerships that we have over the years, again, 30 different departments that we've worked with, allow us to support over 300 unique request types. And just to give you some context, this year alone, 311 has created over 90,000 requests for all of you within the community. So we're very, very active and we appreciate that. All right, next slide, please. This is just a real brief list of the most common things that people call about. You need an answer to a question, whether it's very simple as far as where to go to get a permit or something much more complex. If you want to report an issue in your neighborhood, a streetlight outage, pothole tree trim, whatever the case may be. If you need to put in a request for service, you have a mattress that you need disposed of, we have to schedule those. You need help making an online payment, accessing something through the city website, voicing your opinions. We do collect a lot of feedback, just like tonight, but we collect feedback on a lot of other issues. So if you just want your voice heard and you want something documented, we can do that. And last but not least, point in the right direction. We do have our motto of one call to City Hall, but obviously there are some things that we don't do. But what we try to get good at is knowing who you need to talk to so that you don't have to get bounced around and we can get you through to the right place. All right. When it comes to the topics for this evening, I just want to briefly walk through some of the most common issues that we've seen. We do get calls for trash and debris in the parks and the community path and other public areas. That is something that when 311 gets that request, that goes right to the DPW, whether it's the highway division, whether it's parks, depending on what it may be. But we have a great working relationship, so that gets routed to them, and they're able to handle that. Calls for sharps and syringes and needles, as well as bodily waste. These are things that route to the inspectional services office. And I'd really like to stress this, because this is the type of thing where these are safety issues, we want them resolved. By putting it through 311, it goes directly from our system into inspectional services, directly to the inspectors responsible for these issues. And I'm only bringing this up because sometimes people think if I put in a phone call or if I email, it's gonna get done faster. You're actually just delaying it, because then they have to take that and then put it into the same system. And I just wanted to take my last few seconds to leave you with that message. And again, we collect feedback on this issue. The weekly meetings that were mentioned earlier, we share that feedback with any relevant city staff that need to hear it or know about it. And last but not least, we do referrals, whether it's Somerville Homeless Coalition, whether it's something through CORE or one of the many other services. But that's all of my time, and I believe it's time for HHS and Karen Carroll, our director. HHS, thank you.
Okay, I'll keep this moving too. My name is Karen Carroll. I'm the Director of Health and Human Services here in the city of Somerville. Thank you for having me tonight. So as the mayor stated, we are in unprecedented times, locally, regionally, statewide, and nationally. We are seeing numbers that we have not seen in both our street homeless as well as our family shelter system and our state shelter system. So all of these things increase the pressure here locally as well as throughout the state. We have multiple city departments and outside agencies working hard to address this increased need. And you're going to hear a little bit about that tonight. You've already heard some from my colleagues and from the mayor. So just again highlighting that HHS, in conjunction with many city departments and the Somerville Homeless Coalition, who is our main partner here, reviews data regularly. We meet, we try to better understand the needs of our community and offer some real-time solutions. We collect the data through a variety of sources, including 311, including health data. We hear from outreach teams, again, partner agencies, as well as our own internal community health worker division and the reports of their work. We collect public safety data from our ambulance, fire, and police, and ISD. And we survey folks who live in the community, who use drugs, and who are unhoused to find out what their needs are and how we can best address them. All of these things lead to increased and more targeted supports for the unhoused and other vulnerable residents. This is a picture of some of the city's team. We have some of our public health nurses, as well as a few of our community health workers. Some key support initiatives I want to highlight, and again, we can have questions and discussion after if there are more specific questions. I want to highlight our weekly interdepartmental and interdisciplinary meeting where our colleagues from the Somerville Homeless Coalition attend as well. So we can really quickly get feedback about what's going on across all our departments from Steve and kind of work to address situations with their help and expertise. We are running the third overnight winter warming center. This is a life-saving emergency shelter that was prioritized by this administration, and this will be our third winter running that adult emergency warming center. We also have our community health worker division. This is a new team of folks. About 2 years ago, we received funding. The program is now grown and developed. We have 3 community health outreach workers. They deliver backpacks with essential supplies, harm reduction materials, warm items for extreme weather, both the heat and the cold. And we now can offer benefit enrollment to individuals, Mass Health, as well as SNAP. Whoa, I think I just lost the microphone. Okay, so, oh, there it is. Just a quick example, in the last couple of weeks, our team engaged with an individual returning to Somerville who had lost many of their social connections as well as resources. And we were able to do some outreach for that individual, build a relationship, connect them to our friends at the Engagement Center, bring them into the Engagement Center that the Somerville Homeless Coalition runs. This individual has now been signed up for Mass Health, so they're able to receive behavioral health services as well as access to all medical services and much needed life-saving prescriptions. And they're in the process of getting other referrals going for housing and other basic needs. This is just one example of many of how our teams work together. I also want to highlight our internal teams that are working on the prevention side and the housing stability side. Some of those folks are here tonight. On the prevention end, we're working really hard as well. And then finally, we have a continued support to this new engagement center. It's been open a couple of years with some ARPA funding from the administration. They are full most days, and we partner with them on things like vaccine clinics with our public health nursing team, as well as the Healthcare for the Homeless clinic that they run. Again, a seed project pilot with ARPA funding that we want to build on and evaluate and continue. So those are a couple of quick things, and I will stop for now, but I'll also be here to answer any other questions. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, everyone, for your great presentations. I'm sure we've got a lot of community questions and feedback following. Just to quickly go over the community agreements before we get started, I'll be going around with a mic to try and make sure everyone can be heard, getting closer so I can be heard by the people in the back. I'm going to be going around with a mic so that everyone can be heard. We're hoping that everyone can kind of follow these agreements as we go through, to listen with empathy and specifically an open mind and heart. We ask that folks listen to understand perspectives and to be curious, to respect everyone's voice, and also ensure that everyone can hear and receive the same information. We ask that one speaker speaks at a time. Like I said, there's one mic, so just be aware that there are almost 200 people in this room alone. There's more people outside in the hall that we're going to try and get questions from, so try and keep it brief and to the point, and we're going to make sure that everyone can get their questions heard. And if we don't have time for everyone, there will be an email to send more questions to at the end. We also ask to recognize that two things can be true. People can be passionate and compassionate, but also care about their safety. I think that's true for everyone in this room. And we ask that everyone recognize that we're trying to do this together. No one knows everything, but together we know a lot. Our goal is to come together as a community, to collaboratively identify solutions, and if an item comes up and folks are unable to provide an answer in this moment, we commit that we will try and follow up with that person and come up with solutions together.
Hello, everyone. My name is Wilbert. Let me pull up my script. Neighbors, we're in a crisis. Around 120 people signed on to a letter, this letter right here, of principles and requests. How many in this room signed on to the letter? What I said is, this letter was circled around to Davis Square neighbors, and I'm asking how many of these people in this room signed it? 100. Have tonight for the folks. The principles are: opioids are a public health crisis. We need to have a zero tolerance for opioid use in our public spaces. Our spaces need to be safe and accessible to all residents. Our requests are: the Somerville Police should act with compassion while enforcing the law and protecting the public. Somerville should not currently be zoned or allow commercial users for active users without a comprehensive plan that ensures public safety for all. Third, we need more public programming. Seven Hills Park, if the city were to dedicate more programming, more funding, we would keep it lively. We wouldn't have this issue of opioid addicts in the parks. thank you. And I want to end with one last sentence, which is, how many in the room believe the city's doing enough? Doing enough? Yeah, I heard your question. Wow. Wow.
Number one is, I've been in Somerville for a long time, and I've worked in public service at the hospital and everything. What I would like to bring out is, when Statue Park was first done, it was for people to have coffee, get together for lunch, talk, kids to have ice cream. We no longer have that. Not only that, but there's a daycare right across the street that little kids go walking, and all you do is smell pot, the guys sleeping on the benches. What do you think these kids are saying? Well, what's that? What's this? It's not, this is a family city. There's a lot of children here. How are we supposed to raise children? And everything is in Davis Square. How many more pot shops are you gonna open up? Then you got a methadone clinic. Then you got a place to put their, I was going to work this morning, and they were arguing about who stole whatever backpacks, which is right next to the post office. How much can you jam our throats when people are paying big rent to live here? And you did the bike path. Who the hell wants to go on the bike path? Not me. Well, you can use it, but I got approached because I walk. I don't have the bike. And I got approached with people that I was afraid of that don't even come from around here. Even the people that hung around Statue Park don't hang down there anymore because even they left. So something has to be done. You cannot jam our throats down with all these things, with drugs, and is my kid gonna step on something? It's terrible. I've never seen it as bad as it is. Thank you.
Thanks. I brought my kids up. Thanks. Can people hear me? Now they can. Wow, I sound godlike. So I've been here a while. I brought my kids up through the school system. They're now 23. But a lot of these problems aren't new. We were dealing with stray needles and drug dealing when they were like 3. And there's always been, some not great actors on the bike path occasionally. I don't view it as an epidemic even now. But I did have one specific question. Is there any active discussion about establishing video surveillance in the Davis Square area?
Can everyone hear me? We do have surveillance. We do have cameras in Statue Park. We have cameras in Seven Hills Park, and we have cameras around the bike path. And they are actively used for investigation purposes only.
I'm sorry, so is it proactive or is it just film?
We use it for investigative purposes.
So after the
Sometimes live. Sometimes live. Both.
So the cameras are live, however, it's extremely resource intensive. When we use the term surveillance, I know that it evokes certain responses respectfully, but when we think about the ability to have someone watching a camera, it's extremely intensive with human capital. So most entities don't have someone sitting there watching the cameras. We'd love to have the resources to do that in a proactive way, but we don't. Periodically, when we have special events, we may assign officers there to assist in the special events, but it is primarily a tool for investigative purposes. Thank you.
Hi, I have lived in Somerville for more years, a couple of decades, more years than I've lived anywhere else. And I'm sorry. I've lived in Somerville for about 15 years, and over that time I've seen a number of changes, both positive and worrying. I personally appreciate all of the effort that I've seen our various departments put into addressing all of the issues that crop up and ebb and flow over time. As the Chief of Police just said, resources are necessary for addressing these problems as they crop up. I'm wondering if there's more that those of us who live in the town, who have extra time and interest, could how we could participate in addressing some of these issues that don't necessarily require police intervention. I'm thinking maybe I should contact 311 to have them put me in touch with the right people, but is there anything else?
Thank you. You can contact 311. You can also, we'll have a sheet of paper here, and you can leave your name and email address or contact information. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your question. I just want to share, this is why it's so important for us to partner with the community, because we know that there are ideas, we know that the community has an interest in helping out where and when they can in an appropriate way. So I appreciate the question, and that's why we really want to drill down and go to that next phase of engaging the conversation, because there may be some other innovative approaches where, in partnership with the community, you can help us police and make the neighborhood safe. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Jane Becker, and I live on Francesca Ave. I have a question and then a comment. So my first question is, are we doing anything as a region to combat this issue? Today on NPR, I was listening, and Boston is doing a lot of things, including reopening the Long Island rehab and the bridge and all of that. And I was just wondering, this is a regional problem, obviously. We have been told by the Somerville Homeless Coalition that because of changes in Central Square, where they did some construction, people have moved here. It's 2 stops on the red line, you know. So it's not, you know, it's an issue that Cambridge, Somerville, and Boston, and probably other places that I'm not even thinking of, should work together. And, you know, I just was wondering about that. Hold for a second. Now, my second is a comment, and that is, everybody here is concerned with anything relating to homeless shelters should please sign on to be on the Land Use Committee hearing, which is on October 17th. It's a Zoom call, so there's no in-person meeting, but the mayor is proposing some changes to the definitions of homeless shelter, which could affect, she claims they're minor changes. I do not believe so. And they could affect where a homeless shelter is placed in Somerville, including in possibly a residential area. So please, please, please sign on to that meeting. It's October 17th, land use planning on the Somerville website.
Connor, did you want me to quickly just answer the question about regional work? Thanks for that question. Yes, we do some work regionally. We have regional meetings with other Massachusetts large cities. We share ideas. We've recently been in discussions with the state about how they can best support the large cities. Again, this is kind of a new with the family shelters, that this is reached a crisis kind of quickly. So the state is working with us, though, on that. We're also part of a couple of public health excellence grants with Cambridge, Arlington, Medford. So we are doing some outreach initiatives through that, as well as some public health nursing additional programs. And that coalition may have an epidemiologist come on board, help identify needs. But there is some work happening in that regional, and a lot of sharing of ideas and conversation back and forth with other cities, especially our nearby neighbors, Cambridge and Arlington. We also work regionally with an MRC unit, which means Medical Reserve Corps, and that comes back to the question about how you can get involved. Regionally, we rely on this federal program, Medical Reserve. It doesn't just mean medical. Those volunteers can assist at shelters. They help us put together backpacks for the unhoused. And I know Arlington, Malden are also training in conjunction with us. We did a recruitment activity together so that we can regionally have this capacity to respond to anything from flu clinics to the unhoused, shelters, other things. So thanks for both those questions.
Hi, everyone. My name is Mary Lou Carey Sterniolo. I have grown up here in Somerville, have raised 4 boys in the city. A couple quick comments. I appreciate Officer Donovan commenting on the increase in arrests and just giving us actual numbers of how they are working harder to keep us safe. I appreciate you saying there's 2 truths on. I think we have to keep an open mind that we're all really feeling passionately, and speaking to each other with grace is very important. I have not, it doesn't surprise me that crime and problems have gone up in our city when we have a few years ago taken community police out of our schools. We've made the police department our enemies, and I think that is a huge problem. We need community officers back in our schools. We need them to be allies. We need to train and teach our children that they are here for us and not against us. So I'm not surprised that now we are reaching to the police, asking them to help us when we have not been supporting them for the last few years. That's my second comment. I work in a public school here in Somerville, have been a family liaison for 14 years. Let's not forget the homelessness in the schools, the students. We at Winter Hill have more than, I want to say, of homeless students. Resources are low. So as much as I appreciate that you're saying we're getting all these resources, let's be real. They're taking a really long time to get into the hands of a lot of people. And we have to be realistic. There's more need than there are resources. So let's be real about it. So in the meantime, what can we do to help our families? I wondered if the Housing Human Services Department works with the schools, with Regina and Jennifer, because they are working really hard to make a difference to a lot of students. Thank you so much for your time.
Yes, we are. Regina is part of our Friday morning, and her team are the task force on Friday morning. They will let us know if they need specific things. Working with the Homeless Coalition, we try to get resources to those families and support them. But agreed, it is an increased need we're seeing in Somerville as well. So thanks for bringing that up.
Hi, my name's Christy LaSalle. I'm in Ward 7. And I want to follow up on what you said about the statistics that we heard from the officers tonight, because there was a statistic I kept waiting to hear and didn't hear, which is that crime is up 24% over the 7-year average in the Davis Square area. What I did hear, though, is that we are staying with the resources we have, and we are pulling resources from Teal Square, from Ball Square, from Davis, from other areas of Somerville, rather than committing more resources to this. So I have 2 questions, one for you, Chief Benson, who all the sympathy in the world for this being how you're starting out, believe me, and then welcome, and then a follow-up for the mayor. Have you requested additional patrol resources to be dedicated to the Davis Square and Seven Hills area until this is resolved? And if so, Mayor Ballantyne, have you approved them? And if not, when will you?
So, thank you very much for the question. And I let in with my comments, and the deputy and I consistently speak about this. Part of a sustained long-term response will be resources. The mayor has been very open. We've had very open and candid conversations about what we can do better, what we can do differently, balancing all of the needs of the city. One of the things that we often have to keep in mind, we're having this conversation here today, it could be Ward 1 tomorrow. So we're always, to your point, you're absolutely correct that we have, it's a delicate balancing act, which is why we shared those numbers to let you know that this is a priority for us and we're dedicating enormous resources, but there is a pro and a con to that. Our ability to sustainably do this across the city, across every neighborhood, is a challenge, and we need resources. So what I would say is there's always been a conversation. The mayor has been very clear that she's open to innovative ideas and discussions, and I look forward to engaging her as well as our city councilors and others to talk about the appropriate resources as part of a broader plan.
I lost my mic, so I'll try to yell. Oh, thank you. Why is one of those resources not adding another patrol to the street? If you're telling me that there's an issue that's straining your resources elsewhere in the city, it would strike me that putting another patrol on the street would probably be helpful, yes?
Sure. Thank you for the follow-up. So I didn't say that we didn't or wouldn't request it. It's right, there is an opportunity to request it. There is a process for training officers, getting new officers. One of the realities is when we think about policing as a whole across this country, and I appreciate ma'am, in the second row just behind you, sharing about the climate over the last couple of years. It's had a direct correlation with between our ability to attract individuals to the discipline. So we're working very hard. We are down several positions. We've worked with our colleagues in city government to expedite the process to hire those officers on board. We've reached, there was a question about collaboration. We've reached out to other cities and towns that run police academies to try and secure seats in an expedited fashion so that we could get officers trained so that we can have them available to deploy on the streets. And there is an additional conversation, particularly as we look at long-term plans around additional resources to support those plans in a sustainable fashion.
Thank you. So just building on what Chief Benford said, totally open to it. We're working on the plan. We're trying to hire the unfilled positions, and yeah, but we're working together, and we haven't finalized what that plan is, how much resources, because we're trying to already fill the positions that are unfilled right now. But we're going to look at it. It's going to be a deep discussion. We'll talk about it with the council as soon as we, pull that plan together. But right now, I forget how many positions are on. 6. Yeah, 6 unfilled positions that we're working like crazy to fill.
My name is Lisa. I live in the neighborhood as well. I've been a resident for 20 years. Thank you all for being here tonight. I just couldn't help but notice when we were talking about the statistics that I didn't hear the MBTA mentioned at all. I take the train to work. I go through the park. I go early. I come home late. It's something that I get very nervous about, being approached in the train station. And sometimes there seems to be like this line between where you're a resident or you're a member of participating in the MBTA. And I'd love to hear about the collaboration or how you work with the MBTA to ensure the safety of the citizens. Thank you.
So we do work with the MBTA. The MBTA has assigned officers. I think you've seen an MBTA officer more frequently lately. So they have assigned someone to Davis Square outside the station. You'll see them on both sides of the station. Similar to what Chief Benford said, the MBTA is strapped. They have stations, across the state, across Greater Boston area, and they are having the same crisis that every police department is with hiring and maintaining their numbers. So they are stretched thin, but they have assigned someone to Davis Square. I've seen them myself 3 or 4 times. I actually know the officer.
I would just add, I did see Chief Green and Superintendent Sullivan last Tuesday. I very specifically, with Superintendent Sullivan, was very brief, but I specifically mentioned Davis Square and the ability to follow up. There is not a hesitation to ask for resources. We will ask for resources. We will ask for support. I don't want to put the cart before the horse. I would love to have a plan so that when we go and ask for the resources, it's part of our sustainability and our plan to sustain what we're going to put in place. So I did lay it out. We already have a functional working relationship with them, but I'm fairly confident that we can continue that conversation at a very high level within Transit PD.
Are we on? All right, I want to thank everyone for being here. Obviously, this is a very important issue. It's affecting a lot of us very personally. I'm a 21-year resident who's lived one block off of the bike path. And if anything we know, change is constant, and we live in a very compassionate city for which I'm thankful. And I know we've had in some of the Health and Safety Committee discussions a distinction between our unhoused and vulnerable populations and those who are committing crimes and making our community feel unsafe. And these past few weeks have been incredible to have our community police back. For many years, we had active patrol. We had Marianne on her bike on the bike path. We knew our police. We knew our community. We knew who our unhoused people were, and we were partners with them. We were community members with them. Somehow within the past year, that changed. And these past few weeks have shown that we have the resources and we have the ability to turn the tide. But I guess what I'd like to put to the administration is, how did it get to this point where we now have overflowing rooms? We have Zoom calls that they never even expected the public to be on, filled to the brim. We're now throwing so many resources to fix a problem that seemed to lie fallow without any attention. We have 311. We've been calling all year long about syringes on the bike path. We've been seeing the police action on the bike path. I can see Thorndike Street from my house, and I see the police there all the time with people struggling with addiction, people struggling with violence. So we have this information and we have this data, but why is it getting to this point where we have multiple stabbings within weeks in our square to only now have the action? Why were we not paying attention before? Why was the eye off the ball for Davis Square? And how are we going to fix it, and how are we going to continue these resources to make this the place we love, the place we want our children to be at, and not the place we want to fear going out?
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for your question. One of the things that we have heard consistently is about the community service offices and the community offices in the neighborhoods. One of the things that we hope to discuss with the mayor and as part of our long-term plan is reinvesting in that space. One of the things that we don't want to do, certainly, during my time here and under my leadership, and certainly guided by all of the historical and legacy knowledge that I have in the department, is we don't want to have these conversations once a year or when the issues happen. What we are looking to do, I see the good Sergeant Gobio down back and the tremendous work that all the officers do, but his unit in particular, the community affairs team, they go out, they have these conversations. We're looking to use them in a much more proactive way so that we're engaging these conversations consistently throughout the year. If we have these conversations consistently throughout the year, as these issues in partnership with the community, as these issues come up, we're better positioned to respond to them, as opposed to, as you mentioned, how did we get to this point? And if you look at some of the gaps, we can probably identify long periods and long gaps where we've had sustained proactive conversations. These plans and our response to the issue, we're a city. We're a major urban city in a metropolitan area. We are always going to have emerging issues. We have to have a dynamic plan. We have to have flexibility to be able to respond to the moment. So part of that conversation that we will have is about how can we reinvest with those officers in those units so that we can build capacity so that as these issues come up, we as a department, we as a city can come together and we can respond to meet that moment. I just want to respond, and thank you very much for sharing your comments. I want to just pause a moment to recognize the officers, and just from this vein, these officers are working long days. For myself, this is my 11th day straight. Out of those 11 days, 8 hours, 8 of those days, 16-hour days, because it's that important. I get paid to do it. I'm happy to be here. I consistently have to buy my daughter off with ice cream, but I'll continue to do that. But I want to recognize the officers because they often get forced. It's on my schedule. It's on my calendar. I know that I have to be here. Oftentimes, they'll come in at 8 o'clock, prepared to get off at 4, may have family commitments, and get the call from one of us or a supervisor that they're forced to stay. They signed up for it. But I also want to recognize them for that. But not for that commitment, we wouldn't be able to even respond in the way that we've responded in that area, because what the deputy didn't mention is the number of tours that we've had to force individuals to stay to maintain that presence here. So we're going to continue to be informed by that. We'll continue to do the work. I publicly always want to thank my officers, but we're going to double down to try and come up with a pragmatic way so that there's a greater balance, work-life balance, that also meets the moment in making the community safer.
Thank you. And just one quick follow-up. Has the mayor's office and the police department been in contact with the city council to reevaluate our position on open drug use? I understand drug distribution is criminal. Drug use is still criminal, but the open permission for use has created this environment where we have people who are not part of our usual unhoused population coming to Davis Square to consume drugs openly. And we understand from speaking with the officers in the area that there's been a certain level of tolerance, and that we've asked, and I know the city council has heard, that maybe this position needs to be reevaluated by the city, that open drug use in our public parks, by our schools, is still illegal and should not be tolerated.
Sure. So thank you very much. What I would say is, as my mother, when I leave this meeting, I'll call my mother. She often asks how my day went, and I'll tell her. She said, "What did you bring with you to Somerville?" It's been a busy couple of weeks, and that is true. What I would say is, in these early days, there's certainly. What we need to recognize is when we have a plan, this is part of that fluidity, and this is part of that flexibility. When things don't work, we have to fix them. We have to adjust. We have to be willing to move in that direction. We've had a posture over the last couple of years that may have perpetuated and may have been the position that has led to that question around how we approach different types of crimes. We've always enforced drug distribution. We've always enforced possession. There's been a compassionate and a balanced approach to those that are struggling with substance abuse disorder. What I would say about our partners and our friends on the city council level is, in my third week, I've had conversation, I think, with almost all of them. There has been a clear willingness to have a conversation. I have certainly, from my seat, brokered and reached out to our city councilors to broker a conversation so that we can open the door about how we can work together. This dynamic between us versus them, or this perpetuation that we're not working solidly in concert for the betterment of our communities is a challenge. But what I will say is, we've opened up those lines of communication. Everyone has indicated that they're open to a conversation, and I look forward to it. I certainly would stop short of saying that there's been any opposition, because that's not the case. They have been very much open to having the conversation. We intend to bring all of these dynamics back, and you can look around the room, and many of them are in the room. They're hearing the same things, and I'm optimistic that we'll be able to have a conversation that recognizes that we need to look at things differently, and we may need to adjust how we're responding.
Do I just say my name or anything? Is it whatever I want? Rebecca, I've lived in the neighborhood since 2019, and I'm sorry. Hi, my name is Rebecca. I've lived in Somerville for almost a decade, and I guess this is an interesting follow-up question. But I was wondering if the administration could share an update on what the status of the overdose prevention center / safe consumption site is, and I apologize if I missed this. I've been in the hallway.
Thank you for the question. You can add something afterwards we're continuing to pursue the Overdose Prevention Center. For those of you who are not familiar with it, it's an evidence-based strategy, a safe place for people to use drugs. It reduces the risk of bad health outcomes. It reduces community impacts such as needles and paraphernalia, and it connects people to services. There's still a tremendous amount of hurdles to overcome, including protections to whoever operates the site and protections for those who use it. We're working with partners, including those at the state level, to continue looking into this process.
I don't think there's
I'm
Okay.
my way through just because
Sorry.
there's a few paths to get back. I want to make sure I get everyone.
So I have heard my thoughts echoed. I'm a 40-year resident of Somerville, and I abut the park in Seven Hills. And I think, Miss Mayor, if you lived next to the park, you would have been acting a lot sooner. Residents who are in my neighborhood have been incredibly frustrated, as you obviously are hearing tonight. And we have not heard from you. We have not heard back from our counselor, and we're pretty upset. And I hope you're hearing that. And then that last question was really pertinent, because here you have the situation that's completely out of hand, and you're going to add on into a whole other level of a population that we can't control in a way that feels safe for our beautiful parks that we can't even use anymore. And I just feel like this is going to be a disaster. Of course I want compassionate care, and it's not going well right now, so how is it you're going to double down and add more to this population that you already can't service with your resources?
So, just to be clear, we're at the very beginning stages of this. I would say that before anything is done, actually what I've consistently said, before anything is done, there's going to be community process. So there will not be a surprise. There will be plenty of community process on the topic.
Hello? Yes. Some of us think that it's going to make the situation worse. I don't agree. My name is Jim Recht. I'm a psychiatrist and addiction specialist. My wife and I live just off Powder House, and our daughter lives up off at Ball Square. And she almost never calls us and uses our house like a laundry, but that's it. I worked for many years just around the corner at 5 Hall Avenue at Somerville Mental Health. And for many years after that, at 26 Central Street, in the addiction service and the psychiatry service there. And I hope I've been helpful, maybe even to some families here. For the past several years, I've been working at Boston Healthcare for the Homeless program, and I've learned a lot, and I'm not going to be able to help other people understand everything that I've learned there tonight, but I can tell you what I do know is when we have really strong feelings about things, like this slide shows, it can be really difficult to hear, sometimes to hear facts. I have always prided myself on practicing evidence-based medicine, and I feel strongly that you have a right when you go see your doctor, psychiatrist, internal medicine doctor, pulmonologist, that they make their decisions not based on their passionate feelings, but on the facts and their understanding of the facts. And I'm going to read just a couple of facts. This is based on extensive research looking at thousands of neighborhoods across the United States and Canada over the past several years. And this is what the evidence tells us. We know that homelessness correlates with more crime. We also know that almost all the crime, not all, but almost all of that crime is perpetrated against homeless people. We know that shelters are correlated with less crime. We know supportive housing is correlated with the least crime, and in fact is almost always leads to increases in property values surrounding those supportive housing communities. We absolutely know, there's no doubt about this, nor has there been for years, and I think the officers here will agree, that criminalizing opiate use does not result in recovery from addiction, and it does not save lives. safe injection sites do. I know people are going to some people are going to have a hard time believing that, but those are the facts. And I think it'd be a great mistake if we let our passionate feelings interfere with action on these facts. So thanks.
One second. So I didn't prepare a speech because I thought this was a Q&A, but I'm going to make a comment and then ask a question. I heard this, people can be compassionate and worried about their own safety, and I'm hearing the word compassion a lot, but I'm also hearing the word fear a lot. And you know what, like, I care about your fear because I care about your mental health and your psychic safety. But I care more about your danger level and your danger level and the health of those people. They're sick. They have an addiction. They're not in control. And if we just increase police presence and chase them to another neighborhood, they are going to still be sick. If we arrest them, they're definitely still going to be sick and in a much worse place. So no, I do not want you to start arresting people for drug use. A second quicker comment. If you don't have a kid at the daycare, please don't use my kid as a prop in your argument. Well, not I, but my spouse or I walk past that park twice a day to walk our kid to daycare. We feel less safe now because of the police presence. I'm sorry that you don't agree. That is fine. I understand you don't feel that way about police, but we do. They often, today, they blocked the crosswalk, and when I pointed that out, they were quite rude to me. I understand that's a very minor safety issue, but I'm just saying I feel less safe there. You don't? Great. I want us all to be safe, but more importantly, I want us all to be not harmed. So you're right. Needles in the grass. Awful. Let's put in needle drops. You know, there's a porta potty there. I heard a story from someone who was involved in the porta potty that when it was first put in, the neighbors chased it away, and we had to get it put back in. We used that last weekend. So, just please, your safety is important to me, but their safety is too. So please remember to be compassionate. Now, since it is a Q&A, I want to ask. The police officers talked about getting out of the car and walking. I don't remember what it was called. I am curious whether we're sending social workers in to do that same kind of work, because I think, at least, if I was a homeless person and a police officer wanted to talk to me, I would be much less likely to talk to them than if it was someone in plain clothes, someone with social work training, someone without a gun. So I would like to know what we're doing to bring social workers into that situation.
Thank you for those questions. I can partially answer it, and we have some folks in police and Corps and other city departments who can give you a better answer. We have had a process with our Public Health and Safety for All committee that's been ongoing and reviewed some of the co-response models from all over the United States, and there have been some recommendations that are starting to be put forward about how we could do that better, another model for responding in emergencies. I know we do have our Corps department that often gets brought in by the police department, or other folks in the community will reach out to them. Again, these are resources that we look at on our Friday calls if it's a non-emergency. But in terms of the patrolling, that's a question when our chief gets set up and has a chance to review this model and can work with the city for recommendations on co-responding. We can get back to you. For the moment, we also have our community health workers who are doing a lot of outreach. That's a little bit different. That's not a co-response model, but we have increased that capacity that can provide some supports, direct supports out in the community.
So I also wanted to add is that we're in the final stages of interviewing a social worker for our libraries. So our libraries have asked in particular because many of our unhoused will spend the day in all of our libraries. So the intent is to have that social worker there that can connect everybody, but also our unhoused to resources or work with our community partner, the Somerville Homeless Coalition.
Hi, I live on road right down the street from the park, and I really just have a comment. I've watched the police actually do the walk and talk. I was actually very curious when I saw it because I've never seen that before. They actually walked up to these groups that were, using drugs, and had probably a 30-minute, 35-minute conversation with them that was received really well by the unhoused people. So my hats are off to the police department for sure. Really, you guys are doing an amazing job. And my question is for the mayor. I just want to follow up on that other question. I know Shu answered it, but I'm curious are you interested in looking at the, whatever it's called, about using drugs in public and not addressing that? Are you interested in changing that?
I'm interested in making sure that our parks are as safe as possible. I will say a lot of this is new to me. I want to be able to talk and learn from the chief on what works best and what is in terms of the best evidence-based public health approach to it. It's scary. My kids have said I'm the mom of 2, and I've heard similar stories about like, wow, somebody's using here, Mom, did you know about it? But I would say in my journey and learning more about the public health crisis and drug use is that there are evidence-based ways to address it, and that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to connect resources. We hired 3 community health workers and a manager so they could be on the street in the neighborhoods. We just got fully staffed, I think, as of June. And so they can make connections and connect people to the resources, and it's been successful. And the work that our nonprofit partner, the Somerville Homeless Coalition, has done, and the resources that they've been able to bring in the engagement center has been, impactful and has made sense. But yes, I want to make sure that our public spaces are safe.
Hi, I live in Teal Square. I have a 1-year-old daughter myself, hoping to raise a family here. Certainly things get much worse. We've seen using in the library, in the kids' room, at the playground, up towards Teal. But really, I guess I have a question around, how we're measuring things. I appreciate the arrest data and some of the shared public data there. What else are you tracking? Are you tracking like needle pickups? Are you measuring this in other ways, basically?
Yes, thanks for the question. We are tracking a lot of data, and again, with our partners throughout the city. I mentioned some in my presentation, but our ISD department tracks needles, our police department by location, we can map them, and that it helps us to understand where we might need more harm reduction services or to hand out individual needle receptacles until we get a more permanent needle drop. We look at the 311 calls, we look at our EMS data, overdose data. There's a whole bunch of data, but in answer to the needle collection, yes, we do track that through our ISD department and our database. Thank you.
Joyce McCann, 18 Kingston Street. I've lived here since 1961, everybody, in the same house. I've seen it all. I'm talking tonight as a parent of one of these kids. He died last August of fentanyl poisoning. And first of all, I just want to say to the police department and to everybody here, don't ever fear our police department. They have been to my house hundreds and hundreds of times. They have shown compassion, restraint, total understanding. I never feared that they would come and shoot my kid because he was crazy. So appreciate what we have, because nobody else has it like this. We really got a great police department. We really do. So first of all, a lot of us were on that first Zoom with the old police chief about the previous, we don't know what that was. Was it a directive, an ordinance, something that says we're not gonna prosecute minor drug offenses? I understood that the police chief called it an ordinance. And from what I understand, there is no law, ordinance, nothing that says that is on the books in Somerville. So I don't know where the police chief for the last bunch of years has got that. I think I know. We all do. So the compassion part of it. I can tell you where all these people came from. My son was discharged from a Massachusetts state hospital in the middle of a pandemic with no social security, no support, nothing, to a homeless shelter in Mass and Cass. This is where they go. This is where it happens. And he didn't use drugs for all those years in the hospital. He used them when the minute he got out, and they put them right there. So I have an understanding of how these people get there. It is our decision. It is our laws that say it's okay for us to wash our hands. We let them out of the hospitals. We have no place for them to go anymore. We have to admit as a society that there are vulnerable people who need taken care of, to be taken care of. And that's what our obligation is as a society. It's always been that way. We've had places for people to go who need care, and we need to face reality in this country. We have a drug issue. We have a huge problem. It's not homelessness. That's a whole nother issue. It's drugs. It's hardcore shooting up in the train station at 7 in the morning, having sex on the bench at 8 o'clock in the morning while everybody's going to school and work. It's that. So it's not that we don't have compassion, but we see that our policies and our laws say it's okay for these people to be where they are. And now society is bearing the burden of it because we won't accept that reality. And now we're trying to pull it all together. This agency, that agency, this. It's bigger than us. So I have a lot more to say. I know I'm sounding crazy. So thank you all for listening. I appreciate it.
Hi, I'm Todd Kaplan. I live on Kidder, nearby. Okay, I'm going to really speak into it. So I think that was really helpful, because I think that we are like a shock absorber. We're absorbing so many things, and I really appreciate our Health and Human Services person for giving us that context, that this is something that's happening to us. And the question is, how do you respond? Is it a compassionate response, or is it a whack-a-mole response? Hit that spear, push them out, and they'll go somewhere else. When that is honestly not the solution. And we know that. Instinctively, we know this is a regional, this is a national problem, it's a drug problem, a homelessness problem, and it's come to Somerville. and it's come like a wave. That is just, we're trying to react to this overwhelming tsunami wave, and the question is how we respond. I want to really respect the fact that we have tried to do a compassionate response. It does not make sense to criminalize the use of drugs. It does make sense to have places for people to go so they can access overdose prevention services and get access to services. That is a proven, and we've heard about the stats, that is a proven strategy that's used all over the world, and it's now in New York, and there's no reason we can't do it here. And it's proven to actually reduce the impacts on ourselves. There's going to be less needles on the streets. There's going to be less people using on the streets. There's going to be less crime and violence. We know that. It's a little bit of a stretch. It takes a lot of courage to do it, but we need to do that. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Chris. I live off the path. Over the past few weeks after this surge has happened, I've noticed that the number of people that are hanging about that look rough, that are on drugs or homeless, it's been going down. So the city's surges seem to be having an effect. Based on the stats we've heard, it sounds like some people have been helped off the street by going to jail. I'm wondering if anyone has been helped off the street by, been given being connected with housing or addiction services. And it seems like there's still there's over a dozen people like in Statue Park today. And I'm wondering, if you've been talking to them, what's the bottleneck? Are they not ready to receive services, or are there not services available to them that they could use?
Great question. Can I just answer something? So, as I shared earlier, is I go through the square. I try to go through every day, if not twice a day, and I many times join up with our nonprofit partner at the Somerville Homeless Coalition, and I have learned through my walks in the square, and just like this evening, that I think I'm looking at about 10 people in the square, and was it 4? Yeah. So people make friends in our community. They hang out in the square. But this evening, there's probably a group of 10 people hanging out in the square. 4 of them have housing. Earlier today, the Boston Globe was in the square, interviewing some of the group of people that are hanging out in Statue Park. I believe 6 were interviewed, and out of the 6, 5 had gotten housing through the Somerville Homeless Coalition. And, in a conversation last week, I heard someone complaining about people hanging out in the square. And then I happened to, or maybe it was 10 days ago, happened to talk with Hannah from the Somerville Homeless Coalition. And, I'm counting. I think at that time I came around lunchtime. It was maybe about 11:15, 11:20 in the morning, and there were about 12 people hanging out in the square. I was also chatting with them, and Hannah shared with me that there were 7 who had housing. So I just wanted to share that with you, that not to always judge a book by its cover or their friendships. People create friendships of all kind, and they value those friendships. And I'm going to pass it over to the director to add some more.
Thanks, Mayor. And yes, thanks to the work of the Somerville Homeless Coalition. So what we do know is that these touch points build trust. So the more we can have trust points with our police, with CORE, with our community health workers, with the other outreach groups, Fenway, the more people are likely to go down into the engagement center or sit with one of our CHWs and fill out a housing application. But it's a process, and you meet people where they're at, and sometimes it's quicker than others. I know during our warming center, we saw some folks when they got fed and when they were not freezing cold, they were able to talk with Hannah and the team about maybe a next step and getting applications for housing or coming to the engagement center. So it's all about those contacts, building those trust and relationships, and yes, the Homeless Coalition will come many Fridays with a success story for the team that someone we've been working with or we've referred to them has found housing. So people do find housing. That's not the end of the story, as they will tell you, and their website is full of great stories, so you can go there. There's a lot of resources needed when people go into housing for the first time in a long time. They might lose their community, so they might choose to come and visit or hang out with friends who are unhoused. Or they may need some additional support in learning how to live on their own in housing. So that's just part of the story. But yes, that's a great question. And there isn't, enough shelter. We definitely have waiting lists for families and individuals. And we need more of all types of housing, absolutely. But there is a process, and we are able to assist people when they're ready to get into that process. So thank you.
Good evening, everybody. My name's Jack Conley. I'm a lifetime resident here in Somerville. I've lived 50 years right here in Winslow Ave, right next to Champa Manor. And I've lived and worked in Davis Square, had an office on College Ave for 25 years, and in the square a couple of times a day. First off, I want to say special thanks to the Community Baptist Church, Pastor Lee, for providing the facility here this evening. Joan is here from the church tonight. She's in charge here tonight. You'll see her bouncing around later on. She's been at the daycare all day, and she's simply moved over here tonight, so she's doing yeoman duty tonight. And every Monday night, the Baptist Church provides a meal for people who need it here in the square. A lot of the folks in the square make use of it, so they're doing a terrific job helping the community. They're just scratching the surface. I was a former elected official. I spent 22 years as the Ward 6 alderman and 10 years as an at-large alderman. And we've all heard the problems. It's still not enough. And unfortunately, some of the folks, and Mary even mentioned, some of the folks do have housing, but there are several folks who don't, and there's a huge drug issue. And as somebody mentioned earlier, our Somerville police, I think, have done an exemplary job in being compassionate, careful, and considerate. A lot of these individuals, men and women, go out of their way to be empathetic, sympathetic, and concerned, and try to offer help. Unfortunately, there are people who refuse to help. Bridge Over Troubled Waters comes here in the evening, offers people an opportunity. Unfortunately, people turn them down. Those people maybe need more help than can be provided right now, but that's an issue to be dealt with. I'm hearing from businesses. Right now I'm active with the Chamber of Commerce, and I've been getting a lot of phone calls from businesses who are saying they're having more and more of a problem with shoplifting. A couple of the regional banks here have told me that they're having major issues with their ATMs being used at night. People broken in. Some of the regional banks have had to lock their ATMs because they've been used for all kinds of drinking and drug uses. It's an issue. And Chief, maybe those directed patrols could be sent at different hours. If Deputy Chief Donovan has done an exemplary job trying to put his finger on where the problems are, and I think we're just scratching the surface here in Davis Square. My point of view is Assembly and you have gotten a lot of attention. Davis Square has basically fallen back a little bit up until the last few months when all these issues have come to the surface. We've seen such a huge outbreak in the number of Narcan assists that have gone in here. Last Friday, 3 o'clock in the afternoon, our EMTs came here, several of the police officers here, and did a terrific job saving that individual's life from what was certainly a drug overdose. It's bothersome to a lot of residents, and I'm here to tell you that many people tell me that they're feel scared and they feel unsafe because they don't know what to expect when they encounter individuals walking through Statue Park. Some of the merchants tell me that their business is way off because people aren't coming because they don't want to be in a situation where they could be placed in danger. So there's a lot of issues that I think people are making an effort, but from a lot of the people in Davis Square, neighbors, merchants, and people traveling to the T, it's still not enough. The last time I checked, the only reason government exists, Prime Life, for is to protect the public safety. And a lot of people don't feel that way, so there's a lot to be done. I think a lot of people in the community are willing to step up and help. Mike Libby, Hannah, and the Somerville Homeless Coalition have been phenomenal in the work they're trying to do. It's still not enough. We've got major institutions around here. We've got Tufts, Harvard, MIT. We've got 5,000 people at Mass General Hospital. Are we getting those folks involved? I hope we're reaching out to some of those folks because with this drug issue, why can't we be reaching out to some of those folks to help with some of these day-to-day issues? I hope that's the big picture that everybody's looking at. That's what people tell me. Why aren't we doing more to help these individuals? Arresting them certainly isn't an issue. And again, I'll let our police and our EMTs, a lot of our fire personnel, Cataldo Ambulance, have done a phenomenal job here in the square. And I want to make sure that people realize that they're very approachable. And I wish, Chief, bring back community policing. The police do belong in the schools. They do belong to being an example. I think it could be a great resource and will build, I think, more trust between the citizens and our public safety officials. So thank you. I'm sorry for the long commentary, but that's what's going on here in the town. Thank you.
I'm sorry. Okay, hi. My name is Mariah, and I've lived in Somerville for over 15 years, and I love it here. I have, I guess, a question and a comment. My comment is, I think everyone is struggling to find the balance between saying that we want to be compassionate because we do, and because this is a really difficult problem. But I would also just say, can we have maybe not quite as much, but also some compassion for everyone who does feel unsafe walking through Davis Square. I have a 3-year-old and a 6-year-old, and JP Licks is the coolest place to go. And half the time I feel uncomfortable, or I want us to eat inside and I want to leave quickly. And like, could we just have some compassion for that? Because I understand I'm not suffering from homelessness or addiction, and I'm really lucky not to be. But also, like, I feel like I, do the right things and pay my taxes, and I deserve to take my young kids out and feel safe doing so. I just wanted to offer that perspective as someone with young kids, where I truly love it here. Like I said, I've been here for a long time, but I just question, like, is this going to be a safe enough place where I can continue to stay and raise my family? And so I just wanted to offer that perspective. I know it's a really complicated issue. I know that everyone is trying to also hold the compassion for these folks that are impacted by homelessness and addiction. But I would just also ask for compassion for people who feel uncomfortable, like, day to day. I think a lot of them are probably here tonight. And my second, I guess that was my comment. My question is, I understand this is a complicated issue. I understand there's an increase in homelessness and drug use countrywide. It's a huge problem. But Davis Square, like, what in particular has changed that has accelerated things so much in the past, like, year or so? I guess that's the part I'm still struggling to understand. We know that the crime is up. Like, I understand some people have been displaced from Central Square in Cambridge, but, like, why is Somerville, why is Davis Square the place to hang out and do drugs? Like, what factors do you think have driven that in the past year or so?
Thank thank you very much for your comment. I do appreciate that, and certainly we will be compassionate for all of those that need the help. Several folks in the room have shared that. But as I mentioned earlier, it's a priority for those that call Davis Square and this neighborhood home as well. It is a priority. We are compassionate, and we do understand it. I use the term priority, use compassion, and I think it's an appropriate term. And we are just as passionate around making this community safe for you and your family to be able to enjoy it. So we're committed to the work. With regards to your broader question, there's a lot of data that could be cited, but what I will say, in tandem to your comment around this being a national issue, if you talk to every other community has the same or a similar issue that they're dealing with in their jurisdiction. If you talk to Cambridge, they're having it. We have open conversations with them. If you talk to Everett, they're dealing with it. Certainly if you talk to Boston, they're dealing with it. And on multiple levels, an earlier question around whether we're collaborating and whether we're having conversations, certainly it's a public health-led approach, but we're having conversations with our partners on the north, west, east, and side, each side of our city around what we can do, what are the different trends, what are you seeing, what are you hearing, how can we leverage resources to better respond. But every community is battling the same thing. We're an urban community, which means it's easy to get here. And unfortunately, within certain communities, like with anything, word of mouth travels, they share information, and that population, just by its very nature, moves around. I've seen individuals in our city here today that I saw when I worked in Boston. And it said, and I talked to the officers about that, and I said, that individual there, I've seen in Boston, so we know that they move. So there is a need to have a broad-based regional conversation, one, and two, I think the challenge that we're facing is it's not as though we're battling this on our own. Every community is dealing with the same issue, unfortunately, and some of the best practices we're learning. Some of the best practices we're trying to leverage from others, and some of this stuff, unfortunately, is trial and error, but nonetheless, we're committed to continuing to try to make it safe and be compassionate while using enforcement, wraparound services, and opportunities for those that want to move in a different direction, having services available for them to do that.
We're coming up on the end of our time, so I'm going to take one more question from the audience. Victoria, can you go to the next slide for me, please? We do have a community meeting email that any remaining questions or follow-up questions can be sent to. Thank you all so much for your time, and I think we've got one more here.
Hi, my name is Edie Bresler. I've been here for almost 27 years. And, one statistic that we did not talk about is the increase in the number of people showing up to Zoom meetings and this community meeting. And I want to mention that I have the names of 39 people who came here tonight but couldn't get into this room. So that's an enormous increase in people saying policies are, I don't think they're working, and we need action. People in this room tonight, especially women, are saying, I don't feel safe walking home. We're about to turn our clocks back, which means Seven Hills Park is going to get dark very early. I urge action. I urge maybe police presence to help these women get home at night. Maybe we can set up a community watch, and we can have a phone tree. People can sort of be out there helping people get from one place to another, but we need greater action. I think there's been a lot of talk tonight about studies and policies, and that's great, but those of us who live here, we want our kids and we want our families to be safe. That's it. That's the point. That's why we're here tonight. That's why 39 people who, showed up couldn't get in. It's a lot of people. That's a lot of concern. So that's just where I want to end it, that we're not coming here because we're happy. We're really upset. We're not sleeping well. We're not feeling good.
Thank you very much for your comments, ma'am. I just want to close by mentioning something that I talked about earlier in my opening comments. I asked for your partnership and working with us. We had a meeting 2 weeks ago, and we asked the community to identify a small core of community stakeholders to work with us to come up with a plan. I've been around long enough where we have these meetings, we leave with questions, we leave with conversational pieces, and a lot can get lost. So what we're asking for is those community representatives to meet with us and be part of the solution, help inform the response, and most importantly, we want to have a codified plan, an individual improvement plan for this area. So we've called for that. We're asking. I did speak with a couple we communicated with a couple of individuals from the community just before I left my office, and I know that there's been at least 2 community members that have been identified. But to your point, ma'am, we are asking for those community members to come to the table so that we can work collaboratively on a plan. Most importantly, and I'll close with this, the last thing we want to do is dictate. That was a failed policy that the police did for many, many years. We want it to be an informed process, particularly from the community, so we can understand their tolerance, and there's buy-in from the community so that we're all focusing in on and highlighting and prioritizing the right areas as articulated by the community. So if anyone, there are some community reps here that are in that conversation, but I've been told that there's at least 2, and for the 39 people that didn't make it in and the 200 or so that are here and others that are on Zoom, it's highly improbable that we could have a productive conversation and come up with plans in such a broad group. But if we can have those community representatives identified, I think we can work to come up with a plan that we can all get behind and endorse. And I offer that as a token of action. Thank you.
Thank you all so much for coming. I just want to remind everyone that the Ward 6 community meeting, which is separate from this, will be held October 21st in this room from 6:30 to 8:30 as well. Thank you all for coming. If you have any additional questions or follow-up, please feel free to email us any feedback, comments. We'd love to hear from you guys. Thank you.